There is a version of rich people that exists in movies, on social media, and in most people's heads, they're obsessed with money. They think about it constantly. They take bold risks. They hustle harder than everyone else. They have some secret investing strategy, or some insider knowledge, or some unfair advantage that explains why they have what they have. And then there is what wealthy people actually say when you ask them how they think about money. Warren Buffett lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Charlie Munger drove a 2000 Honda Accord until he was 90 years old. The founder of IKEA, one of the wealthiest people in Europe, flew economy class his entire life and ate at cheap restaurants. These are not PR stunts. These are the revealed preferences of people who have more money than they could ever spend, choosing not to spend it. Because here is the first and most important thing about how wealthy people actually think about money. They think about it far less than you do. Not because money doesn't matter to them, but because at some point in their financial lives, they built systems that make money work automatically. And once the system is running, they stop thinking about money the way most people think about it, as a daily source of stress, decision-making, and emotional activation, and start treating it as a tool that operates in the background. The middle class thinks about money constantly because money is a constant source of uncertainty. Will there be enough? Where is it going? What happens if something goes wrong? The wealthy have answered those questions structurally, through assets, through systems, through buffers, and so the daily mental bandwidth that money consumes is dramatically lower. This is not a small thing. The cognitive space freed up by not having to think about money all the time is redirected into things that compound over time: skills, relationships, judgment. The actual source of wealth creation is not the thinking about money. It is the thinking that happens when you are not consumed by thinking about money. The second thing. Wealthy people think in assets. Everyone else thinks in income. Ask someone from the middle class how they're doing financially, and they will tell you their salary. Ask someone genuinely wealthy, and they will tell you their net worth. Or more precisely, what their assets produce. These are completely different mental frameworks with completely different implications for behavior. When you think in income, a raise is a success. You earned more. Life improves. When you think in assets, a raise is just raw material. The question is what you do with it. Does it become an asset that produces future income? Or does it become consumption that disappears? The wealthy person looks at every dollar and asks, what does this become? The consumption thinker looks at every dollar and asks, what do I want right now? Over 20 years, these two questions produce completely different outcomes. Not because one person is smarter or luckier, because one question builds a compounding base, and the other one doesn't. The third thing. Wealthy people treat time as their most expensive resource, not money. This sounds like a cliche. It is not. It has a specific practical meaning that most people miss. The average person thinks about saving money as the primary lever of wealth building. Cut expenses, spend less, find the cheaper option. This thinking has a ceiling. There are only so many expenses you can cut before you've optimized everything that can be optimized. The wealthy think about protecting their time first, because time is the input that produces compounding. Every hour spent on a low-value task is an hour not spent on a high-value one. Every decision that can be automated or delegated frees up time for the things that compound. The wealthy pay for time constantly, for services, for delegation, for systems that run without their attention, not because they're lazy, but because the return on their protected time is higher than the cost of buying it back. And here is the specific implication that most people miss. The wealthy do not try to optimize every financial decision. They set up the important systems, the savings rate, the automatic investments, the asset allocation, correctly once, and then they don't touch them. They deliberately spend less mental energy on money management, not more, because the attempt to optimize every decision introduces behavioral error. The system, running automatically and never second-guessed, produces better outcomes than the human making active choices every month. The fourth thing. They are not optimistic about individual bets. They are optimistic about long-time horizons. The image of the wealthy risk-taker, the bold entrepreneur betting everything on a single idea, is real but rare. Most people who have built substantial wealth have done it through something far less cinematic: consistent behavior over very long periods. Buying assets, not selling them. Adding more when prices fall. Waiting. The psychological difference is this: most people need to be right about individual decisions to feel okay about their financial situation. The wealthy don't need to be right about individual decisions because they have built enough margin of error into their overall position that individual mistakes don't threaten the whole. This is why wealthy investors say things that sound reckless. I don't worry about short-term volatility when they are actually being deeply conservative. They are conservative at the portfolio level. They maintain enough diversification, enough cash buffer, enough long time horizon that any individual position can go to zero without changing the outcome. That structural conservatism is what allows them to appear cavalier about individual positions. The person without a buffer cannot afford to be wrong. They need every decision to work, and the pressure of needing every decision to work produces exactly the kind of reactive, emotional decision-making that ensures most of them don't. And the fifth thing, the one that is most counterintuitive and most important. Wealthy people do not think about getting rich. They think about not getting poor. This sounds like semantics. It is not the focus on wealth accumulation, on making more, earning more, growing the number, produces a specific set of behaviors. Chasing performance, taking on risk for the excitement of the upside, concentrating in high conviction positions. These behaviors occasionally produce spectacular outcomes and regularly produce spectacular failures. The focus on wealth preservation, on not losing what you have, on surviving downturns, on never taking a loss you can't recover from, produces a completely different set of behaviors. Diversification, margin of safety, avoidance of leverage, slow, boring, consistent accumulation. These behaviors almost never produce spectacular outcomes. They consistently produce good ones. Buffett's 2 rules of investing are famously: rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. This is not a clever quote. It is the actual operating principle of the most successful long-term investor in history. The avoidance of catastrophic loss is more important than the pursuit of exceptional gain, because exceptional gains are optional. Catastrophic losses are permanent. Most people never build wealth not because they don't make enough money, but because they think about money the wrong way. They think about it too much and at the wrong moments. They think about income instead of assets. They undervalue time. They need every decision to be right instead of building systems that survive being wrong. And they focus on the upside of wealth when they should be focused on the avoidance of the downside. These are not complicated ideas, but they are the ones that actually separate the people who build wealth from the people who don't. And now you have them. So here is where I want to hear from you. Which of these mental shifts do you think is the hardest to actually make? The income to asset shift, the time as most expensive resource mindset, or the preservation over accumulation focus? Drop it in the comments.